Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We are coming to you virtually from Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. We like to call it the PNW. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. We bring on incredibly brilliant, savvy, and sophisticated business owners like we have today, and you get to learn so much. It's like taking a master's degree in becoming an entrepreneur. This is where what we call street smarts and book smarts collide. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is Michelle Baumberger. And Michelle is coming to us from Arizona today. She's in the warm weather, so I might have to give her a bad time about that. Michelle, I'm glad to have you here. We'll chat in just a second. Our guest today, we're very excited to have Nyasha Tunduwani. Nyasha is the CEO of Real Impact Technology Consulting. They are a Seattle-based firm that helps businesses and nonprofits adopt and maximize their use of technology. Through affiliations with Rotary, and Nyasha and I were just talking about, we're both Rotarians, through their affiliation with Rotary, the University of Washington, of which I'm an alumni, and Women in the Cloud. That's not me, but I got the first two. Nyasha has been a mentor to students and entrepreneurs. Nyasha is an active member of the Microsoft partner community and the Black Channel, and the founder of the Black Channel Partner Alliance. That's an organization committed to growing Black-owned technology firms and digitally transforming community organizations. Nyasha, we are excited to have you here to learn more about you and your business. We'll be with you in just a minute. So everybody listen, we come to you from about a dozen different cities. We kind of like ours the best, but we are in Atlanta. We have a new place in Columbus, coming to New York City soon. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. Michelle, what are we?
Ubiquitous.
We're ubiquitous. Yes, it's my favorite word. So listen, please subscribe, rate us, do all of that fun stuff. We're excited to have you on. And so thank you for joining us. Michelle, we're going to talk to Nyasha very soon. But for right now, I'm going to welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. You're in a little bit warmer weather, and in Arizona, it's been a little bit nippy here in the beautiful PNW, but so you're probably getting a little bit of warmth.
Yeah, it was beautiful this morning. The mountains were just a light with kind of that fiery sunrise that you see here, that we just, we get beautiful colors up there, but the mountains against that beautiful, huge sky is unique to Phoenix. So it was nice to see that this morning.
Good. Well, you know what? This is going to be nice and fun too, because you obviously are an attorney, and I'm going to put you on the stand. We're going to do a little Plead the Fifth. I'm going to put Michelle Baumberger on the stand because it's Thanksgiving. And so I want to know, I've got just a few kind of very quick Plead the Fifths before we bring Nyasha on. Plead the Fifth: pumpkin pie or apple pie?
I would say apple pie. Pumpkin pie is unique. You got to do it right to make it super good.
Okay, Plead the Fifth: turkey, ham, or other?
For Thanksgiving, always turkey.
Always turkey. And the stuffing inside the bird?
I'm kind of ambivalent on that. My husband tends to be a little bit more conservative, and so he doesn't like to stuff the bird because of all the raw juices and such. But I'm less of a worrier, so I'm ambivalent.
Okay, so well, I like that. So last one, something's going to be on TV probably. Is it football? Is it Christmas movies? Or is it cooking shows?
It's the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. What are you talking about?
Okay, I meant after the parade. I'm sorry, after the parade. Is there going to be any football on TV?
It'd be football.
All right. Okay, that's you know
You
what?
already knew the answer to that, though.
My bad. I can't believe I forgot the Macy's Day Parade. Well, thanks for having
That was one of my bucket list items, and we did that, oh, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, and it was spectacular.
Really?
So I absolutely recommend it.
Okay. Well, you know what? I didn't have that on my bucket list, but now I definitely do. But we've had on our bucket list to come on the show for quite some time, Nyasha Tunduwani. Am I saying your last name correct, Nyasha?
Perfectly, Dan.
I'm
There will
glad.
be prizes after this episode, so thank you.
Well, thank you. It's great to have you. There's so much to be thankful for. I kind of quizzed Michelle a little bit on some Thanksgiving Day things. You probably, I know in having talked to you a little bit, you've got a great business. You've probably got a lot to be thankful for. What's topping the list of what Nyasha's thankful for this Thanksgiving?
It's just family. So, I last saw my parents in 2019, and so the last few months, my mom's here right now. My dad was here last month, and so just getting everyone back together is I'm hugely grateful for.
I think that's one of the special things about this year is, I think we all reflect back on the last couple of years and sort of what was missing from our holidays, and especially when we have family that's so far away, to be able to bring them together for this year, I think just makes it even more special than it typically is. So great to have your family close by.
Oh, absolutely.
So I wanted to sort of kick off the questions with the entrepreneurial focus on, you've been in business, you've had real impact for many, many years. What was that pivotal moment that you said, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur?
Well, there's a couple there. So a lot of people don't know about this about me. I'm a second generation business owner. So both of my parents owned businesses when I was growing up. My mom was a serial business owner. So she did a hairdressing salon. She owned a gas station. She had a farming supply goods store outside of the city. So there was that. My dad in 1980 left the bank when Zimbabwe became independent to start his own business. And so I grew up around people that really, went out and got after it. And so as I approached my 30th birthday, I had an opportunity to work for my wife's company at that time because their IT provider went out of business. And so I said, I'm 30. I don't really have a great number of obligations right now. I know that this is something I want to do, so I'm going to go do it. And so that really drove me into the space. Now, in hindsight, I wish I'd known how to run a business better than I did. But I knew that, after having seen it done wrong and then seen it done right, I'm like, there's a couple of things I could do here better than what I've seen. And so, I did it at that point in time, and it's been phenomenal ever since.
I'm going to pounce on something you just said, Nyasha, that, looking back, you wish you knew a little bit more about how to start and run a business. But the reality is that so many entrepreneurs did the exact same thing. It's like, hey, I want to control my own destiny. I have some smarts. I have, some tools. I've got some skills. I'm just going to dive in. What's that say just about, us as resilient and the ability to go in and learn and figure out a way?
Oh, that's funny. So I just remembered something which I have to break, because this was the actual turning point where I decided I was leaving to run a business. I sat in a review with my manager, and she said, well, we're going to give you a 3% raise this year. I'm like, I've been underpaid since I took this job. And so she says, well, you make more than most of the managers. And I said, that's not really my fault. Go back and figure out what it needs to be. And so that was the trigger moment. And that I was like, I cannot be sitting here having 3% raises when I'm achieving way more than needs to be.
Right.
Regarding the resilience, I mean, I always took the approach. I mean, worst case scenario, I'd end up in the exact same seat I just got up and left, right? I was always going to be able to get a job. And so for me, I had like a 2 to 3 year target where I said, if I can replace my salary in this time frame that I had, then at least I can justify it, and my wife won't come after me for basically putting the family in trouble. But and maybe it's it was naive because of the point that I did it. But there was nothing. I always had a fallback, and I was always supremely confident in what my outcome would be. I think the knowledge now of how long it would take, were I to go back there and look at it again, I'd probably, do a little more, or get a little more experience around certain things. But it was well worth it. I mean, you don't get here without the journey.
That is true. And we didn't mention earlier, but Nyasha and I have been in Entrepreneurs Organization together for a number of years. And so when we talk about that foundational learning, we went through a number of programs and training together on that. And so I know that there's a lot of background into how you have really intentionally built your business. But I'm interested in the development of the Black Channel Partners Alliance. Can you share just a little bit about kind of what the foundation of that is and kind of where it is and where it's going?
Yeah, and ultimately it really parallels my journey. So in 2016, I had some investment from Microsoft. So I was called in for a feedback session with the team that works with partners that work with small businesses. And they asked, how I thought the relationship was working. I'm like, well, it's working out great for you, but it's not really doing a whole lot for me. And to be completely honest, I'm on Google Apps and I'm thinking about selling Salesforce. And so Karen, who is now a very close friend over there, says, look, we're going to invest some money in you. And the only thing we ask is you do, what we tell you to do. And I'm like, cool, yeah, I can do that. And so I was introduced to another friend of mine who's a phenomenal strategist who really helped me create a simple business model canvas for my business around Microsoft and around Microsoft technologies. And so this one page document that we created, we had a vertical focus, we had specific solutions we were building around, built out the relationships I need to have, ultimately took us from, I'd say probably about 560,000 to over $1 million. Because before that, everything I had been doing was so scattered. I was doing a little bit here, a little bit there. And so that process that really drove that growth, along with the networks, EO and other things that EO Accelerate and other things I was doing, drove my growth. And so last year, as we experienced all the social upheaval here, a friend of mine and I were getting together, and so we sat down and we're like, okay, look, there has to be something we can do, to help our community and the organizations within the community. And so we decided at that point to look at, apologies. So we decided at that point to look at the size of businesses and the fact that, you go to these conferences and there's no Black-owned companies there, right? Especially with some of the largest organizations in the world. The Microsoft conference, I went 4 days without seeing an African-American owner of a business. And when you have, 30, 40,000 people gathered, you really wonder what's going on. And so, we looked around for organizations that were supporting these Black-owned companies in tech, specifically that sell through partners, so Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and there weren't very many, if any. And so we decided that we were going to build it. And so that's what drove that process. And so Microsoft is our funding sponsor. And so over the last 9 months, I believe we have about $500,000 that was raised specifically for this purpose. And so that's how we came to found BCPA and what kind of things we're working on.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, Nyasha, that's fascinating. We have to go to break, but before we do, I'd be remiss if I didn't have you just explain a little bit about what your business is. We've talked about a lot of cool things,
Yeah.
but just take a few minutes now and tell us what is your business.
What is Real Impact? What do we do?
The real impact of your
What is
business?
Real
Tell us
Impact?
about
And
it.
why is it called Real Impact? So we're an IT service provider. So we work with a lot of small businesses that are either having challenges with their technology or don't really have a pathway or roadmap that helps them maximize their use of tech. So traditionally, we were doing help desk and server maintenance and those types of things. Our future, and I talked a little bit about the fact that we will be, I wouldn't say pivoting, I'd say more approaching what the history is of our business, right? Which is really around consulting. We're in a time where businesses are transforming everything they're doing, right? I was trying to schedule an appointment with an optician the other day. I could not find one that had online booking. Out of the 10 or 15 that I was looking at, I'm like, really, I got to call in, and one of them forwarded to a fax machine. And so the future of our business is, one, really helping people get on board and secure their environments. And then two, making sure that your customers can reach you and you can get data about what your customers and clients are looking for. And so that's where we're moving, is really surfacing some of that data, surfacing some of that information, and giving you rapid access to actionable data about your business and your clients. So that's what we're doing.
You just made me chuckle a little bit about the online, right? I think the medical profession for the most part has missed that. I just literally started laughing when you said that. So, hey, listen, this has been a great conversation so far. I can't believe we are already at our first break. Nyasha, we're going to take that short break right now. We got to pay the bills. But when we come back with our guest, Nyasha Tunduwani, for our hot or not section of the show, we're going to expand our conversation on DEI workplace committees. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Your business is a valuable achievement, your livelihood, and your legacy. Every day you are asked to balance business opportunities and legal risks. But engaging legal adds complexity and expense. You deserve to experience business law the way it should be: practical, responsive, approachable, and transparent legal solutions to support your business in every stage. With Equinox Business Law Group's General Counsel Services, you get a corporate legal department tailored to your business needs. Let us tackle those contracts, HR, partnership, and IP issues so you can get back to your most important work, seamlessly moving your business forward. To learn more about Equinox's fixed cost, all-inclusive legal services, visit our website at equinox.law or email contact@equinoxbusinesslaw.com. Equinox Business Law Group, business law the way it should be.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger, here with our host, Dan Whedon, and our guest today is Nyasha Tunduwani with Real Impact Technology Consulting. All right, now for our next segment, Hot or Not.
And Nyasha, this is where Michelle and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life. Who knows, maybe even Thanksgiving. We never know. But we're going to find out if you think the topic or question is hot or not, and then why or why not. And I'm afraid at the end you win absolutely nothing, but I hope you have some fun with it. I was fascinated by what you just said about going to that conference, the Microsoft conference, and in 4 days, you didn't see another Black owner, Black business. It begs a question for me, and I think I know if this is hot or not. I want to talk about DEI workplace committees. Are they hot or are they not?
Ooh, it's a tough one. Lukewarm.
Yeah, we come out of the
lukewarm.
gate swinging.
I'd say hot with caveats.
Okay.
Right. So, done right for the right reasons, absolutely. With the buy-in of the people that are engaged, yes. Not everyone that's out there wants to be an advocate. I stood up to do it and said, this is part of the things that I need to do. But be mindful that it's not a role that everyone wants.
All right, hot or not, comprehensive solutions like Microsoft 365, where everything is sort of packaged all together in one.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a plant. It's really, 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 really crazy hot. So, if you have all the data within a particular ecosystem, there's things you can do and action on that you just can't do with separated platforms. So, if I look at just, the scenarios that we're working through, where you can take data out of a database, you can action it in email, and then you can create a flow that then connects to your CRM, and then have that same information in Teams. So your workflow, your basically collaboration application. To build that out separately is a lot less value. So the price point is higher, and your integration is where the pain happens. And so, you remove the pain and you reduce the cost. So definitely hot.
All right. So since we talked about this a little bit earlier in our first segment, I'm going to come back to it. As far as being an entrepreneur, Nyasha, hot or not, or which one's hotter, street smarts or book smarts?
Oh, oh, I'm gonna have to go with street, just because I came through getting slapped around, and so that's where I got it from. And there's people who are ahead of me that have been through that street learning that I can reach out to, and that's high value. So I'm gonna go street smart, definitely hot.
Hey, Michelle, do you mind? I want to have a quick follow-up question. Nyasha, you said your mom and your dad both were entrepreneurs.
Yep.
One or two things that you took away from observing them that you're using today because of that?
Yeah, it's funny. I had this conversation with my dad probably about 3 weeks ago. The depths and meaningfulness of relationships came from my dad, right? He's got these people that he did business with years ago that'll come up and fly him around the planet to come hang out because of something he did that long. So the ability to nurture relationships as you're building a business, I think is something critical. I've got these phenomenal relationships long term. I mean, Michelle probably doesn't remember when I first met her, but I've got these relationships that span a long time. So that's from my dad. From my mom is just the idea that there's a business in anything. So one of my high school jobs was my mom, we had this large yard, and so she would get shrubbery that she would sell to the hotels. So one of my jobs was doing the rounds between these hotels to sell them the shrubbery that they would use to decorate the tables. So I'm like, there's no one, at least that I've seen, that's like, okay, I've got these bushes in my garden, let's go and sell this to a hotel, right? But that's my mom in action.
That's amazing. I love those stories. All right, so hot or not, you mentioned a number of networking organizations, community-based organizations that you're involved with. So online networking, where are we?
Is it hot or not? I'm gonna go hot, and I think it is platform dependent. However, all of the stuff we've done. I mean, we set up a nonprofit that's national and now global in the middle of a pandemic with a group of people that I may not have met ever in person. Right? In the mindset that we were in before. A lot of the relationships I have today that have allowed me to build both the business and the nonprofit, I wouldn't have were it not for online network.
That makes me think of something, as how much technology in such a relatively short period of time has just continued to advance. And if there's a word that ubiquitous is, it's technology in business. That being said, I think there's still probably a lot of small business, medium-sized business owners that have misconceptions about how to best maximize, how to best leverage, how to best use technology. What are small and medium-sized business owners not doing that they should be doing when it comes to technology?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So I'll preface this by we got fired by a client yesterday. So that's where I'm going to start. So what they should not be doing is buying servers and putting them into their office and trying to run them internally. So that's what they should not be doing. I think, you know, there's a couple of areas around this, right? So let's start with Dan, your space, right? So we've taken on 3 clients post ransomware, right? So they'd had a ransomware incident and then they came to us. So small business owners are not buying cybersecurity insurance. So that's something that they are not doing and need to do. The other thing that they're not doing, and this is broad, is engaging with professional organizations to help them work through some of these things like security and some of the threats that are out there right now. Right, the time period where you could have your nephew, uncle, cousin do this stuff, unless they're in the space, is going to be behind us, because the risk is substantial, both for the person doing the work and for the person receiving the work. The other thing that that I'm not seeing a lot of, and so when I look at tool sets, I like to think, like, if I started a business today, are these the platforms I would launch that business in? And so a lot of small businesses, especially ongoing concerns, I think really need to take a look at that and say, hey, you know, if I started this today, what platforms would I be on? Because I think, you know, rather than incremental improvements, sometimes you just have to make a break and then, you know, use the solutions that exist today, because there's so much more innovation, so much more intelligence baked into those solutions than the old client server pieces that are there. So those are my 3 that I'll go with.
That's great.
now.
Thank you.
Sort of an extension of that, I think one of the things that as a small business owner that I struggle with is sort of, you know, your basic IT infrastructure, right? Most of us at this point have managed services, right? We have people who make sure that the wheels turn and the computers turn on and all those like basic things. But then there's all these things around it, from privacy to cybersecurity to integration of, you know, we've got dashboards that don't integrate with our tool sets properly. And you know, how do small businesses go about finding those professionals to integrate those things and build the workflow that you talked about? That's magic, what you talked about. How do we do that?
So I think there's 2 things, right? So there's the role of the MSP. So, you know, I'm gonna say this here first because I've just been thinking about it. You know, for a long time, we made the infrastructure so complex that it needed a group of people that managed infrastructure, right? And so that's basically who we were, which is why I say that we're undergoing a transformation. The difference is the infrastructure is simplified, but you don't necessarily want the person that's been running infrastructure to move over into your business analysis and the rest of that, because that's not really a comfortable space, right? So and I don't mean to answer your question with a question, but ultimately, you know, and I was thinking about this, your MSP that you have today, your managed service provider, your IT provider, is either your biggest advantage that you have as an owner, because they're consultative, they're looking for the solutions, they're bringing them to you, they're saying, hey, this is how you need to think about this, or it's your biggest barrier to moving forward because they have you trapped in this architecture that works for them, but isn't necessarily going to work for your business going forward. And so, you know, with our approach right now, we don't have to understand everything. We just have to have the right relationship so that I can talk to you and say, hey, this is what I think you need. This is the person that we need to bring in to do this for you. And so it's going to move more into, you know, I think someone had mentioned like a GC type relationship where, yeah, we'll take care of some things internally, but ultimately, and this has been my approach for a long time, to bring best of breed specialists to do what they do into your environment so that you can really get the best of all of those solutions. Because for most of the SMB IT providers, myself included, we're not large enough to reach into all of these areas. However, what I will say is, I mean, if you look at the last week and a half, we have a law firm that's asking for workflow automation. We have a nonprofit that's asking, for help with their business intelligence. And so, if you go to your provider and you ask them these questions like, hey, this is my business problem, and they look like a deer caught in headlights, or they want to talk about, what the server or firewall needs to be, then it might be time to really look outside of that and find a provider that's thinking a little more progressively around how technology is transforming.
Yeah, a bit more consultative, consulting focused rather than, sort of a fixed solution that's rolled out. That's interesting.
What's the business problem, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, our only problem right now is we got to take another break really quickly. And so we're going to take that break. It's not a problem because we're going to do it quickly and we're going to come back with more. We're going to take that short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Nyasha Tunduwani, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to go to a little book smarts. I'll let him sit and stew on what I mean by that. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, and the Kitsap Sun newspaper. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound, Pacific Northwest, and beyond. I'm co-host Michelle Bomberger, and our guest today is Nyasha Tunduwani. Let's join our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
And I know we have Michelle here, Nyasha, but you can't ask for her help to plead the fifth. This is you can't. Well, you could. You get one plead the fifth. We're gonna turn up the heat maybe a little bit and ask some other questions.
So I can't call my lawyer, Dan.
Well, you can, but I don't think she's going to help you in this one. In fact, you might be getting the tougher questions from her. So let me lead off with this. We were talking about book smarts versus street smarts. I think you wisely said street smarts, but plead the fifth, Nyasha. If there has been one, what's the most impactful book in your life?
Ooh.
And that could be business, personal. Just what book has impacted you most?
The last lecture was recommended for me by a business coach. That was really deep, especially at a time where I wasn't thinking about my own mortality or what the outcome of that would be, or just the urgency around, how I needed to approach things.
That was incredible. Thank you. I hadn't thought about that book in a while or any of that. Thank you for reminding me. That was, and it's a good one to think about at this time of the year too.
Yeah.
All right. So you said I could ask you the hard ones.
Sure.
Do you have a mantra that you operate on?
Whew. Let me see. I mean, that's a tough one. I don't have a mantra. I have a phrase. I mean, also from my business coach that I live with, which is that, you'll be the same in 5 years, except for the places you go, people you meet, and the books you read. And so I that's something which I live by.
Ooh, I like that. Now, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't throw in a 4-way test there, because we're both Rotarians. And we could throw in a little bit. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And
that's the other one. So those are my two things.
There will be beneficial all concerned. That's right.
There you go. The first one led me to Rotary. So
there you go.
That was the journey. So
I think I've got a little bit of a fun one for you here. You mentioned, and I thought this was brilliant, that your mom could find a business in anything. I love the shrubbery going to the hotels. I'm glad that she made you do the sales work on that. But if I said, Nyasha, you have to start a new business and it's got to be based on a hobby, what would that business be? What's the hobby?
Ooh, let's see. It has to be chess. I do everything chess all the time, and I'm gonna hijack an idea. So there's Detective Cookie, who's local here, has a chess program for kids in the inner city. But if I could do a social corporation that finds a way to get chess into the hands of kids that wouldn't necessarily get it. I love that because of the strategy and just the future thinking and everything else. And so it would be something to do with chess.
Very cool.
Yeah, my son was a chess player when he was little, and I think you've sort of seen that growth into, other areas like debate and, just that thinking and that strategy, which is really really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think getting exposure to that is a great idea.
Yeah.
You mentioned both of your parents being sort of inspirations for your business. I'm wondering if there's anyone else that stands out as being an inspirational, either personally or professionally, in your life, that has sort of led you to where you are today.
There's, I'll be greedy and choose two people. Isabella McPeak, when she ran Action Coach, was pivotal in me understanding what other elements of the business I was completely failing to pay attention to. So I'll go with her. And Chaitra Vedulapalli, who's the founder of Women in Cloud, is a mentor of mine, friend. And I think the thing with Chaitra, who I met in 2016 as part of that the Microsoft thing I talked about earlier, is just she dreams big. And then she goes out and chases it. And so, I wouldn't, realistically, when I look at starting BCPA, I wouldn't have started it as fearlessly as I did, except for that I have, this phenomenal example of how to create impact that's close to me.
Very cool. So, I in my business, I tell my clients that I try to look around corners for them, that I'm seeking out those potential calamities and I'm trying to look around corners. I'm guessing you probably are looking around corners for where technology is going. And there's a lot of crystal ball-ish in that as we see how much it accelerates. If I'm a small or medium-sized business owner watching or listening to this, what are some things that you can see that are around the corner, maybe over the course of the next few years?
Yeah, I think there's, everything we've been doing, and I won't say everything, a lot of what we've been doing to date is based on past information, right? It's looking at a record that existed before. So the ability of technology to predict, I think, is going to be something that's a big change from what we've done in the past. Just a quick example. So we're on this legacy support ticketing system, which was fine. And then I looked at a new support ticketing system and I'm like, oh, this is suggesting solutions. I mean, it's like, it's like I'm driving a Model T, right? And so that speed of response, predicted response, and those types of things are going to be huge. Just the amount of data we can gather and the information that we can get from it, I think, is going to be massive. I think the big trend, at least in small business right now. So I attended this thing. Actually, was inspired by the partner conference, and they were talking about citizen developers and low code and things like that. I saw someone build an application to actually. This was with Michelle was there. So for build an application to support an entrepreneurs organization group with zero code, right? With Airtable. Now, if you look at what it would have taken to build that application a year, 2 years ago, you go out, you hire some developers, you as a small business owner, you may get them offshore because you can't afford the price of getting it done on shore, it takes months, and the thing comes out and it does like 30% of what you asked for, right? So low code and the ability for us to be able to create solutions at a very basic level very quickly is going to be a massive trend. And I think if I were an owner right now, and I always recommend that the owners that I know watch the keynote at Inspire, which is the Microsoft conference. You can choose whichever platforms you'd like to use, but it's not at the point where now the IT team is the one that needs to go and consume that, because so much of this can be done at the employee and the owner level that the awareness is what's going to make a difference there. So that's my thought on what's coming around the corner. And if I were an owner right now, and I don't care what your industry is, I would start to look at that. And just to make this point, I know 2 people that are in the EO that are in specific industries that are creating solutions to help manage those business processes, right? And that's a new business for them that they're launching based on their awareness of the technology needs in their space.
I think it's a game changer for small businesses as well, because we've looked into automation and apps and tools, web tools, and it's cost prohibitive, and it puts you at a competitive disadvantage in many, many ways. And so I love kind of the opportunity that you just presented.
Yeah. Well, fortunately for you, Michelle, Microsoft Flow is built in, and now Power Automate, you have that with your license. So there's the value question. So
now I just need someone to translate what you just said into what I need to do with it.
Well, let me put it this way, and this is why it's important, right? So there's so many times that you walk into an environment and people have things that they don't even know they have, right? So if you're in Office 365, you've got workflow automation at a very basic level that you can run, right? If you're so there's things like that where people are running stuff with Zapier, right? So if I were looking at this, I would figure out the business problem that could do with automation, and then take that to whoever your closest technology person is. Here's my business problems that I know could be automated. Can you either, 1, help me do it, or B, find me someone that can help me do it? And the likelihood is that that person's out there.
Well, with that amazing bit of advice for all of us sitting in the audience with our brains spinning around all the different things we can do, I want to say thank you, Nyasha, for joining us today on the Shrimp Tank. It was just a pleasure to kind of hear your story and some of the background on what inspired you to both start your own business, Real Impact Technology Consulting, as well as BPCA. So thank you so much for that. If any of our listeners want to get in touch with you or learn more about your business or the nonprofit, how can they get more information?
Yeah, so if the easiest way is just go to LinkedIn and find me. So it's there are a lot of Nyashas out there, but not many that are connected with Real Impact Technology Consulting. And I think if I remember correctly, I may have the actual LinkedIn shortcut for my name. So it's linkedin.com/in/Nyasha, and you'll be able to track me down there.
Great. Thank you again. For all of our listeners, make sure you check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Please follow our show's social media pages as well on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Nyasha, thank you again. It's been an honor to have you on the podcast. We really, really valued everything you said. Michelle, thanks again for being here. Hopefully you're going to enjoy a little bit of the heat. To both of you, happy Thanksgiving. Our next show will be on Wednesday. We'll back on Wednesdays, Wednesday, December 1st at 12 p.m. Pacific. So you're going to need to be on our Facebook page. You got to like our Facebook page to come and watch the live stream. Our guest will be Rachel Kim from Untaboo. So we're looking forward to having her on next week. In the meantime, everybody, please be safe, be well, be prosperous, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.